In the recording. And we are now recording. Hello and welcome back to Welty at Home, the slow reading virtual book club that alternates works by Eudora Welty with works by authors connected to Welty. Today, we are delighted to host a special Welty at Home bonus session featuring book club member and Welty scholar Melissa Fox, Millsaps professor Michael Pickard, and Digital Welty Lab student Rose Caston, who will be sharing more about their project, A Piece of News, Finding Eudora Welty in the Newspaper. My name is Anna Traylor. I am the Special Projects Coordinator at Eudora Welty House and Garden, and we are grateful to Suzanne Mars, Eudora Welty's friend and biographer and Professor Emerita of Millsaps College, for guiding these discussions. But first, just some quick housekeeping. To comment or ask a question, click the reactions button at the bottom of your screen and select raise hand. If you are on a tablet or a phone, you may have to tap the screen for this option to appear. And a lively discussion often takes place in the chat, so be sure to glance over at that chat box every now and again. And with that, I'll hand it over to Suzanne. Would you like to introduce today's presenters?
I'm honored to introduce all three of our presenters today. I'll start with Melissa. Most of you know Melissa Fox as a member of our Welty at Home book club and a valuable contributor to that club. She has the misfortune to be called upon by me quite frequently. I think you'd probably like to know more about Melissa, so I'll give you some more information. She is a writer and independent scholar who has published pieces in the Michigan History Magazine, West Michigan Modern, the Owl Canyon Press, and in the Eudora Welty Review. She has a BA in English and a Master in Library Science, both from Indiana University, and she worked in libraries for 10 years, most recently in the History and Special Collections Department at the Grand Rapids Public Library. She received the Gordon Olson was a boy in my tiny little high school, but I don't think it's named after him. She received the Olson Award from the Kuchke Office of Local History, I hope I pronounced that correctly, at Grand Valley State University in 2023, and was awarded the Eudora Welty Review Research Grant in 2025. Melissa is the principal investigator for A Piece of News, Finding Eudora Welty in the Newspapers, a project she created in collaboration with the Welty Digital Lab at Millsaps College. Michael Pickard is the Eudora Welty Chair of Southern Studies of Southern Literature and Associate Professor of English and Creative Writing at Millsaps, where he also directs the Millsaps Digital Welty Lab. A recipient of the college's 2022 Divisional Award for Excellence in Teaching, the Janet R. Langley Award for Excellence in Academic Advising, the W. Charles Salas Award for Distinguished Service to the College, and of grants from the Mississippi Humanities Council and the Mississippi Arts Commission. He has published articles in the fields of book history and British Romanticism. His most recent work, however, has been focused on Eudora Welty and includes essays in the Eudora Welty Review, a chapter for a book titled Eudora Welty in Mystery, and a digital edition of Welty's story, Powerhouse. That's a wonderful aid to teaching Powerhouse. He is currently working with me on a book about Welty's house and garden. And Rose Caston, we see Rose down there, I think, is a rising senior with a double major in English and creative writing and in history at Millsaps College. Beyond the college gates, Rose is working alongside Theron Wilkerson, a PhD candidate and Africana studies instructor at Auburn University, on a biography exploring the life and activism of Sister Frankie Adams Johnson. Within the college gates, Rose is a vocalist, an actress, and a co-editor of the Millsaps newspaper, The Purple and White, and she is a 3-year veteran of the Millsaps College Welty Lab staff. She has worked on A Piece of News since the start of this project in July of 2025. So, having introduced all three, I'm going to turn this over to Michael Pickard to start us off.
Hey, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I'll just ask Melissa if you would mind starting our slideshow for us. As Suzanne said, I'm Michael Pickard, Welty Chair of Southern Literature here at Millsaps College. But my very best credential is that I was Suzanne's student and still am Suzanne's student in so many ways. I could not be more grateful for all that Suzanne has taught me and for her mentorship and friendship for so many years. And it's just an honor to work alongside her and so many others on this call as Welty scholars. So the main topic of our presentation today is the website that Melissa has been developing and that we in the Welty Lab have been helping her to build. But I want to just begin briefly by telling you a little bit more about the Welty Lab, and then I'll turn things over to Melissa. So Melissa, if you don't mind queuing to the next slide. I have written about the Welty Lab, and some of you on the call I know already know about it, but it was founded in 2017 and is supported by a generous endowment given by friends of Millsaps. And so we're really grateful to have their support. Welty Lab aims to enlist our students in an effort to imagine Welty's digital future. That's our aim, and I want to tell you a little bit more about that aim by putting it into two basic contexts. The first of these contexts is the shift that we're living through, the momentous shift from print to digital media, and now, of course, to the world that kind of terrifies me of AI. Today, even texts that end up as printed books all too often, almost always, in fact, begin as digital files. So you make a book these days by opening up your browser, or sorry, your laptop and Microsoft Word or another text processor and creating a file that gets turned into a book. And many of us today, maybe not all of us, but many of us do almost as much reading in digital environments as we do in print. And I think this is especially true of younger readers, of the new generations of readers who we have to hand over our literary inheritance to. I myself, of course, like so many of you, I'm sure, learned to love reading long before my family ever owned a computer. But I find myself more and more immersed in these digital environments, even as I know they will never replace, at least for me, the experience of printed books. The second context that informs the work we do in the Welty Lab is that of the scholar's duty, as I see it, to help keep the writers and books we love, books that have shown us the brightest heavens of invention, current and in circulation. Writers work all their lives to publish imaginative works, and we're so fortunate that they do. But eventually, all writers must rely on other people, on their readers, among others, to keep those works in print and to keep them relevant to changing times. Scholars are the species of reader, in my view, who devote their professional lives to doing that work, to ensuring that the books that they love can make readers of the future feel as though the tops of their heads were taken off, as Emily Dickinson once put it. So putting those contexts together, the Welty Lab invites students to become the kind of readers we call scholars, who help keep writers' works and memories alive. And in 2026, this goal seems inextricably bound with the work of building sites for engaging with Welty's writings online. So building online environments for the study and enjoying of Welty's work. To date, and this is the next slide, Melissa, we have 27 student Welty Fellows who have contributed to our projects. So we'll just cue that slide.
I'm trying to hit it. Sorry.
I put the names of the students up there just for you to see, but all of the slides, there we go. Thank you so much, Melissa. All of the websites that we're going to slide through in the next few minutes, I have the URLs on the slides in case you want to visit and check them out. So these are the contributors to the Welty Lab to date. Many of these students have worked in the lab for multiple years, and it's been a great pleasure to see some of them go off and work in the world of digital publishing, and also, of course, into grad school and other environments as well. We're going to go really quickly past this slide to our next slide, Melissa, which is the first of the Welty Lab projects that we completed. This is that digital edition of Powerhouse that Suzanne mentioned. On this site, among other things, you can hear all the music in Welty's story, all the music that she alludes to. When she published Powerhouse in 1941, many of her readers would have been able to hear those songs in their heads as they moved through the story. But very few readers, comparatively, in 2026, can do that unassisted. We may process the songs as names, and we may have to close our book or put down our book and go find the music. But it's hard to kind of have that playlist in your head as you're reading. And yet that playlist seems crucial to understanding Powerhouse. And so this site does that by linking to YouTube videos of the music. And of course, we also gloss various other historical figures and references in the story. We'll go to the next slide. So we also have a digital companion to Moon Lake. This project grew out of a classroom assignment in that unforgettable first spring of COVID, when we all suddenly had to shift online around spring break. And it's the work of Rachel Yancey, a Millsaps alum, who is now the digital publishing specialist at the University Press of Mississippi. I won't say too much about this site, but I encourage you to go visit it. It's full of great stuff. Ray did an amazing job on this project. Our current work, we do a number of different things. Not all of them are published yet. And so, Melissa, if you'll go to the next slide. But these are some projects that we're working on today. We have a searchable database of Welty's library that, when finished, will include images of all the different books in Welty's library. We're just beginning a census of Welty's correspondence, which I think will be a really useful tool for all of us to have. And we do an archival project that focuses on Welty's friends, Carl and Mildred Wolfe. If you've taken a tour of the Welty house, you will have seen Mildred Wolfe's portraits of Christian and Chestina Welty and of the two of them together. And the Wolfe Studio here in Jackson, which is where the Wolfes did their artistic work and is in the process of becoming a nonprofit, I see as a kind of sister site to the Welty House, a site commemorating the artistic work done by Jacksonians in the 20th century. And so our students are going over there and helping them with their archive. Students in the Welty Lab also serve as interns at the Welty House, where they get to work with Anna and sing Anna's praises. This year, they also contributed the first draft of the annual bibliography of Welty scholarship published in the Welty Review, continuing a legacy that Pearl began and led for many years. We're doing a lot of things. I'm delighted to be able to do this work. And we are also enormously fortunate that Melissa Fox reached out to us last year to begin collaborating on this project, a piece of news. And so, Melissa, in just a second, I'm going to turn it over to you, but I want to have Rose Caston, who is a current Welty Fellow, as Suzanne said, in her third year, speak just a little bit about your experience, Rose, and then I will pick it back up and turn things over to Melissa. So Rose, would you like to share a little bit about your time as a Welty Fellow?
Yes, of course, I would love to. Thank you, Dr. Pickard. Good morning, everyone. So my experience as a Welty Fellow has been a great and long journey of learning and growing and accessing different aspects of education that I didn't know existed until I came to college. I've been on the Welty Lab staff for 3 years at this point, and since then, I've been on various projects. I would work on the transcription of her letters for some time. I think that was more so at the beginning of my time working for Welty Lab. I work even currently a little on the digital library with some of my peers, Ryan Harper, Olivia Dole, and Blair Thomas. And I even had a draft of a documentary written, but never really got off the ground. But my experience has shaped the way I view historical memory and archives by allowing me to engage in different projects, see how they go, and see what one student can do to be involved in maintaining the legacy of someone so brilliant and interesting as Welty. Keeping the memory of Mississippi history alive by creating digitized projects to allow modern educators and modern thinkers to easily access those histories is one of the more important things for education, in my opinion. And the Welty Lab is a part of that inclusion. And my experience with Welty Lab, I believe, is the main reason why I have the opportunity to study at the University of Southern Mississippi for 6 weeks at their digital humanities residency this summer. And I hope that I can use that experience to expand Welty Lab projects even further and to expand the project, a piece of news that we have to present to today. So, yeah.
Thank you, Rose. Rose is, I'm so proud of her. She's one of our best students, full stop, and she does a million different things. And I'm just glad that we have a chance to work with her here in the Welty Lab. And having said that, we'll have time for questions at the end of this talk. And so I'd be delighted to ask or answer any questions you have about the Welty Lab. I know Rose would be delighted to share more about her experience. But the real focus here is a piece of news. And I just want to say that Melissa has been so dynamic and so wonderful as a collaborator in putting this site together. I think it has the potential to change our understanding of Welty by exposing Welty's presence in newspaper culture across more than 100 years. And the number of articles that Melissa has amassed and the work she's done to digitize and make them searchable and navigable in different ways is really exciting to me as a scholar. And I think we're just beginning to see how the work that Melissa is doing will help us bring an even more complex and nuanced picture into view. You know, we have Suzanne's wonderful biography, and we have other biographical efforts that have done a lot to shape our understanding of Welty's work. And this is another lens through which to view Welty's public life, alongside, for example, the volume of reception history that Pearl has edited, among many other efforts. So I'm excited about this project, and I hope that you'll enjoy learning more about it. And I'll just pass it on to you, Melissa.
Struggle with the slides. Okay. Thanks, Michael. And I want to also thank Anna and Suzanne for their interest in our project and for adding this session to our reading schedule for Meanwhile, There Are the Letters. And a big thank you also to the Welty House for hosting this special session. I'm thrilled to have the chance to talk more about this project. I was reflecting this morning, Michael, that I think it's just been exactly about a year since I emailed you to see if we could collaborate. For those of you who don't know, this project began as a conference paper for the Eudora Welty International Conference in Jackson. That paper, also called A Piece of News, Finding Eudora Welty in the Newspaper, drew a line between Welty's short story, A Piece of News, and Welty herself as a piece of news. It was after the conference and I saw Michael's little postcard in our conference folders that I reached out to him about the possibility of collaborating with the Digital Welty Lab on collecting all the data I had and making it into an index that could be useful to other scholars. So I'm beyond thankful to Michael and Rose and the Digital Welty Lab for seeing the potential in this project and for helping to make it a reality. I also want to, before I get started, talk a little bit about, I'm reluctant to do this, but share a little bit more about me because I think it's going to help provide how I got started thinking about this. As Suzanne mentioned, my background is in public libraries, a really natural spot for a reader and writer to land. My first job was at a small branch in South Bend, Indiana. And aside from being surrounded by books and talking about books to people, the thing I really fell in love with and what made me pursue a degree in library science was the community, was being embedded in the neighborhood and being a small part of the daily lives of our patrons. Stories, of course, were everywhere. Later, when I worked in the History and Special Collections Department at the Grand Rapids Public Library, I became a part of another kind of community, one focused on collections and patrons interested in preserving and uncovering the histories of a particular city and its people. And again, stories old and new were everywhere. But so was a visceral version of time, archival material, photographs, papers, newspapers that both expand our understanding of the present and our continuity between then and now. While my personal life has taken me away from the librarian as a profession, my work, research, and writing is still driven by those ideas of community, by history, by understanding our individual places and spaces, by what Eudora Welty refers to in her essay, Place and Fiction, as the inexhaustible subject, you and me here. All the pieces and particulars of the instance of you and me here, singularly and collectively, drive my work and have been my touch point into Welty's work. So that when I began this project, it wasn't with the intention to create an index or a database of articles of Eudora Welty in the newspaper. The project can be used in that way. Instead, with each article I found, I think, who was Eudora Welty in this moment and in this moment, and who was the reader? And how did these two individuals, reader and writer, meet via this article? Newspapers both document our community and are documents of our community. In this way, newspapers as objects, as sources of information, as key parts of our daily lives are valuable pieces of our material culture. And newspapers are a history we share with Eudora Welty. Not only has the public learned about Welty's life and work via their local newspapers, but Welty wrote for newspapers. And in interviews from interviews we know she was a regular reader of newspapers. And in reading Meanwhile There Are the Letters, we also know that she shared clippings with her friends. To link back briefly to Meanwhile There Are the Letters, here are just a few clippings from Welty's time at the Santa Barbara Writers Conference. Thanks to the Welty collection at the Mississippi Department of Archives and History, and to books including Meanwhile There Are the Letters and One Writer's Beginnings and Suzanne's biography of Welty, we are able to understand some of what Welty's personal or interior life was like during certain times of her life. Historical newspaper articles give us a sense of what her public life was like, or how the public understood her. I think these newspaper articles are interesting to see after we've read the letters and we know what she was thinking during these times from the letters, and to see them from the other side is interesting. So to that end, our project, A Piece of News, Finding Eudora Welty in the Newspaper, documents every instance I have found and continue to find of Eudora Welty's name in the newspaper. The project is both a valuable index, including reviews, society columns, advertisements, etc., and a medium to share my work considering historical newspapers as part of the material culture of Welty studies. Guided by two questions: how was Eudora Welty presented to and known by readers in her time? And when Eudora Welty found her name in the newspaper, what version of herself did she see? What eye in the world did she feel looking in on her? This project is focused on the public life of Eudora Welty and newspapers as a space where reader and writer met. With that in mind, I want to start and just show you how to use the site. So to give a little bit of sense of what goes into it, for every article that I find that has Eudora Welty's name in the article, I enter it into a spreadsheet that Rose created. And I'm going to let her talk more about that in a little bit. That involves entering the title of the article, if there's an author that goes there, the date, the newspaper, the city and the state, and any subjects that I see jumping out from the article. That can include a book title, content from the article, what type of article it is, so that every entry can have multiple subjects, and that creates multiple ways to search for articles on the site. So how do we use the site? So this is the site, and the URL is right there, apieceofnews.org. Right now we have around 3,500 articles in the index, and many, many more to come. It's a lot of information, a lot of data to wrap your mind around. But the project can be searched generally using the search box on the homepage, right at the top of the right side of the menu bar. But the way to really get into the data, I think, is to use some of the more dynamic pages: the map page, the subject page, and the timeline. As I said earlier, this project can be used as an index to search for articles about Eudora Welty. These are not proprietary articles. These articles can be found on all the major newspaper databases and other sources. But what is singular to this project is that we've brought them all to the central location. And our attention to cataloging, allowing the collection to be searched in various ways, by subject, by date, and by location, so that each article is enriched by every article added to the project. And every article added to the project adds to our understanding of Eudora Welty's public life and challenges our expectations of how she was known and where and what kind of news about her was published. Just one quick example before I show you how to use the site. When the Welty House garden opened to the public in 2004, it was covered by the Associated Press with a great photo spread, an article by Denise Groans. The article was syndicated to newspapers across the country. Here's a sampling of some of those. The article itself is interesting, but our project, A Piece of News, allows us to see more than just the article. We can see the many articles and how and where this one article circulated and we can begin to think about larger connections and implications, such as what can we understand about how the public knew Welty by 2004, and why this article was able to have such a reach just based on her public persona. How does an article like this bring new readers to Welty in 2004? We'll get more into these kind of questions in a few minutes. For now, let's look at the map page. And I'm going to pass the mic to Rose so that she can share some of the work she's done to make this page function.
Yeah, hello everyone. Yeah, so my main role for this project was the process of geolocation. So in order for the coordinates and locations to be present on the map of the website page, I would have to go into our internal database or the spreadsheet that we have to upload, I guess, semi-monthly to the website. And I would have to go into the database, and with each entry, I typically upload the location for every publication and source of the collected item and plug their locations into said geolocator. And it would have to output a latitude and longitude. And then I would upload the coordinates to each row of the spreadsheet. And with each fresh data entry completed, I would upload the entire file to the website since the geolocations are the last things that are to be done typically. And all the locations are present in the map that is present on the site and which inhabits all of these entries. I think that process I think there's about 3,500. A lot of those locations are in the southern United States, and most of them being in Jackson, Mississippi. I think that's pretty much what I do for that aspect of the project. Yeah.
You can just imagine processing 3,500 GPS coordinates times two, one for latitude, one for longitude, and making sure they're all accurate and formatted correctly. So it's an immense amount of work. And Rose has done other things too, but she's modest. But yes, I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, Rose is being modest. She's done a ton of work to get the spreadsheet in order. And this visualization was the most exciting first thing that I saw when Michael shared Collection Builder with me and its possibilities. And when we began to see this map populated, I thought, okay, this is one of the things that is really central to this project, is just seeing the articles where they are. And so Rose's work has been essential to helping me think bigger things about this project. So as we've been talking about, the map gives you a sense of location and volume of articles and begins to address questions like, where did Eudora Welty appear in the newspaper most often? And how was work about her life and news about her work and life covered in different areas? If we zoom in, as Rose said, North America has the most articles right now. We can begin to think of the number of articles in an area and why that may or may not surprise us. I continue to run into new cities and think, wow, it's surprising to me to find a lot of articles in certain areas about Welty. Individual articles can be accessed from this page. Here I've zoomed in on my local area, which is Chicagoland. And then when you click on a yellow dot, so in this case, I've clicked on number 67 by Chicago, and that spins out all the articles just in Chicago. Each of those number ones in the green circles can be clicked on, and that will link you to the article in the site. Another way to use the map page is to search it. It's a little clunky, but here I've searched advertisement, and that gives us a list of all the articles that are tagged with the subject advertisement. Right now, that list does not reflect the dots on the map. That's something we'd like to improve so that if I search Delta Wedding, the map would repopulate and only show articles from Delta Wedding. That would be one improvement we'd like to make. The location page functions in a similar way to the map page. It's another way to see articles by city. Clicking on any of these locations will give you a results list of articles from just that location. And Rose and Michael can help remind me, but we have it set so articles have to have a certain number of locations have to have a certain number of articles to show up in this list. So Jackson has the most, that's why it's the biggest on the list. Similarly, clicking on any of the subjects on the subject page will give you a result of all the articles tagged with that subject. Reviews, advertisements, society columns, so that we see actually beyond reviews to a fuller sense of how Welty and her works were seen and understood by the public. In this example, I've searched the subject shoebird, and on the left side, you can see the 174, the top of the 174 articles, including everything from book reviews, information about the Shoebird Ballet, the symphony, also advertisements are in that list if we scroll down. Then on the right, you can add more filters to that search. And here I've just added the filter ballet, and that reduces that list to 31 articles. That's one way to kind of refine searching. Finally, the timeline page positions articles by date. You can zoom in and then scroll to find articles in a given time frame. While we still have some adjusting to do here, the timeline is one way to visualize when articles about Welty appeared. So those are some ways to get into how to use the site. Searching for an article is one way to use the project, but the data we have gathered can also be used to think about Eudora Welty's work and life from other angles, via the lens of local history, via interesting juxtapositions in the articles that she appears in, Welty's public persona versus her private life, who Eudora Welty was in the Jackson community, and many others. While those initial questions I mentioned earlier, how was Eudora Welty presented to the newspaper, presented to and known by readers in her time, and when she found her name in the newspaper, what version of herself did she see, continue to drive this project. As I work through these articles and can see growing patterns and connections and clusters, additional questions continue to emerge. Here are a few of what I'm calling case studies that I'm exploring. First, biography. Who was the Eudora Welty we see in the newspaper? How did the public view and understand her life and work, especially before one writer's beginnings? What can we learn about the public life of Eudora Welty from searching historical newspapers? Then, ephemera. Thanks to Welty scholars Pearl McCaney and Peggy Prenshaw and others, many of Welty's book reviews and interviews have been collected. But what about the many other pieces of news about Welty? Here I'm thinking about advertisements, celebrity columns, crossword puzzles, and trivia questions, theater news, coverage of her photography exhibits, and so much more. What is the lasting effect of these momentary pieces of news? And how did they help shape the public's perception of Eudora Welty? Then Jackson society and community. From the early 1920s through the 1930s, Eudora Welty appeared regularly in the Clarion Ledger, first on the school honor roll and in notices of piano recitals, then in society columns and articles about community organizations such as the Little Theater and the Art Association. Here, I'm interested in what role Eudora Welty played as a citizen of Jackson, Mississippi, in terms of the history of that place and her involvement in community organizations. I'm also interested in the transition from the Welty in the local community news to the society column she wrote, to publishing her first stories and becoming a public figure, and really appearing far less frequently in her local newspapers' community happenings. Then viral moments. We expect to find a surge of articles about Welty and her big moments. A short story wins an award, a book is published, but what about other instances when her name appeared spread across the country in syndicated articles that had wide reach? For one example, Welty attended the Breadloaf Writers Conference in 1940. An article about that conference with the photo spread was widely syndicated. It was titled, "America's Coming Writers Work and Play with Literary Masters." Welty, still early in her career, is only mentioned in the article alongside well-known writers like Robert Frost and Wallace Stegner. How might connections in the minds of readers to these writers influence Welty's career, and especially A Curtain of Green when it was published the following year? Another example, in September 2009, the Parade magazine insert, which was a widely syndicated news magazine, included an article about actor Peter Sarsgaard, in which, after he explains his Mississippi roots, says he's a massive fan of Eudora Welty and comments that the shoebird is the most charming thing ever. How does a moment like this bring new readers to Welty and to the shoebird? These are just a few of the things I'm thinking about with this project, but there are so many ways to consider all the data we have collected. Eudora Welty had a long life in the newspaper, from 1920 to today, and that life went beyond books, to theater and art news, and into her connections to new media, such as public television, recorded books, and email servers. And when she traveled, the news followed her to colleges and universities and conferences across the country. All of this comes to quite a lot of pieces of news and quite a public life. And as more articles are added to this project, more possibilities and areas of research are discovered. We hope readers and scholars will use this resource for their own research and will be willing to provide us with feedback. We are also interested in working with scholars to add articles to the site, particularly from areas of the world and newspaper archives we don't currently have access to. Thank you again to Anna and Suzanne and to the Welty House for hosting this discussion, and we're happy to take any questions or comments. I shall stop sharing.
That was really lovely,
All right,
Melissa. Thank you so much.
now I'm muted so I can field questions. All right. Questions? Pearl. We can't hear you yet.
Shall we come back to you, Pearl? Or I think it's just unmuting.
Yeah. Anna, can you unmute Pearl, or maybe she...
I have clicked the prompt, so if you see that pop
Okay,
up.
I think I got it.
Yeah.
All right. This is just so marvelous, and I'm thinking right away about all the files that I need to send to Melissa, so that you can see if there's anything that I had that you might have missed, but I doubt it. But I'll send it to you anyway, and I'll communicate with you. My question is, are you stopping with Welty's death, or are you continuing up through the present?
We're continuing as meant through the present for sure.
Okay.
I mean, the news I think a lot of us have seen where the Welty's name came up in connection with Sinners, the discussion around Sinners over the last month or so, just continues to point to her relevance, and we want to capture that, her presence in our news. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
Our
good.
most recent article entry is from the year 2022 as well. We haven't gone up to 2025, 2026, but like Dr. Pickard said, that her name was in like recent discussion with Ryan Coogler's Sinners movie as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Lots of good things. Thank you.
I have a question. What about international articles? Because when I saw the map, I was thinking there's been a lot of published in England about Eudora Welty's fiction, reviews of her fiction she published in the TLS, although it wasn't signed at the time, those kind of things. Are there databases you can mine for that?
The New Statesman is digitized, but it hasn't been OCR'd. So that means it's like scrolling through microfilm to grab those articles. They're digitized, so I have grabbed some of them, and when you look at the map, you can see some of those there. Some newspapers from England are included in newspapers.com and Genealogy Bank. So I would love to. Laura actually reached out and said she could give us some articles from Italy, which would be really cool. So I think we're looking for help with some of those other areas.
Thank you. Laura, you want to chime in here?
Yeah, well, I'm so excited about this project, but I did just do a couple of quick searches, and there are some newspapers in Italy, like the Corriere delle Sere, and there's a large number of articles, of reviews, but also more contemporary as well. So there are definitely archives online that can be added, I think.
Great. Harriet?
I was going to say, I think that as in addition to England, France, because we've had French scholars who have uh, um, uh, been with us all along, and while Danielle Pitavé-Soux unfortunately has passed, Geraldine Chouard is somebody we could put you in touch with to get her help collecting things in France.
Yeah,
Great.
thank you. Yeah, that was an area that I was really hoping to find someone to help with.
I wonder too about all the trips the University Press made to Russia. If there are resources there. So
There are so many. I mean, as I think Suzanne knows, I'm interested in a 1971 edition of Losing Battles that seems to have been pirated in Taiwan, and so I'm interested in the Welty's reception there and what got into the mind of those Taiwanese publishers that they would this would be a successful venture for them to do. So I mean, I think go country by country. I think, and I hope that we can do that work because the more data that we put on this site, the more useful it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
other questions?
I had a quick question. I would love to hear you guys speak on. I saw whenever we were on the map page that there were articles out of Australia. And I think that is just the neatest thing in the whole dang world. And I would love to speak on y'all's experience finding those and collecting those from so far away and like what those say to us. And I do have a secondary question after this, but we'll start here.
I see Tom Nolan has a question too, so we'll come to that next. Yeah.
The articles from Australia, I think, are on newspapers.com. What's interesting to me is also like the ones that come out of the UK, they're about a year behind. So A Curtain of Green was published here, and then maybe a year later it's published there. And so there's like a whole nother sweep of articles. It's the same case for those farther regions like Australia. Um, there is a magazine that is out of Australia. It might have been Story magazine that has a regular ad. It has Eudora Welty's name just in the ad as someone is like a regular contributor to this magazine. So there's a lot of articles from there for that reason.
Tom, did you have a question? You're muted. Still mute. There you go.
Thanks. I was wondering if you did include magazines and magazine articles in the index.
The New Yorker, for sure. There are some articles from the New Yorker, the Atlantic. I think other periodicals other than newspapers we would like to include. It's just getting access to those archives can be they're usually for pay or something. So the Saturday Evening Post is available, I think, freely online. So some of it is just finding them. But yeah, we would love to include those as well.
Thank you.
Harriet, did you have another question?
Yeah, I was just going to add that contacting Welty's translators in other countries. We have one in Czechoslovakia. I think that's an avenue for getting help.
Mhm.
Good idea.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. A great idea. Another thing that would make it really interesting to study comparatively would be if we could get some scholars to do similar archives for Welty's peer writers. They would be really interesting to be able to look at, let's say, 3 writers alongside each other and to see what the coverage in the newspapers has been. And so that work, of course, would require expanding to a kind of broader scholarly community. But that's a longer term goal I'd love to see as well.
Joe Ellen. Well, you're muted too there.
Yeah, thanks. This is really a wonderful addition to Welty scholarship. Melissa, just off the top of your head, I wonder how you would answer the question of what has struck you as really oddball in the coverage that you have located, or really funny? And then second, maybe farthest afield, the most surprising location, not maybe somewhat Montana or whatever. Just anyway, what has really just kind of been fun?
Um, the farthest afield one I think that I found fun is the articles that have popped up in Hawaii. For some reason, that location, when that popped up, I thought, okay, there's a state I haven't run into yet. And that almost is along the same lines as Australia in terms of how news reached Hawaii in certain times. I think two articles that have surprised me. One I presented in at SSSL was an article about this phenomenon of lightning photography. Um, and because I'm just searching Eudora Welty's name in the newspaper, any article that just has her name in it is what I'm interested in. And so that can be about anything. This one happened to be about a woman who was documenting lightning photographs, and I had written to Welty about the one that occurs in Delta Wedding. Um, and so my paper at SSSL was about that instance. And that's what I think is surprising. One surprising thing about this project is you can consider the data as collections, but also individual articles can
Hmm.
be inspiring and reflect in her work. The other article that I think is interesting is there's a moment when MoMA, and Michael might be able to pull it up, adds the Jeep Wrangler to its collection and makes a very strange comparison to Eudora Welty and how she thinks subjectively. And there's an instance where why would anyone put those two things together? But those juxtapositions are really interesting to me when they pop up, especially in terms of popular culture.
Thanks.
I hesitate to mention this possibility because Pearl and I have talked about traveling out to Montana to research Eudora Welty's time and the Lewistown, Montana newspaper office because we have both searched separately and then conferred on it, trying to find any articles she wrote for that newspaper. We know when she was there,
Hmm.
but we've not found any signed articles, and it'd be interesting if we could.
What was she doing there?
She went out to see a friend of hers and that she had met when she was at Wisconsin, and to she
Oh,
spent
yeah.
some time there, a couple of months there, and her friend's father ran the newspaper, the local newspaper. And in fact, that's where a piece of news came. Someone snowshoed into the office to say, my husband did not shoot me, and you need to print a retraction. And so that was the spark for the story, a piece of news. So your website would be benefit from that little connection if you could find an article about that, but I haven't found it.
That
And
would be
Paul
interesting.
is a much more thorough researcher than I have, haven't found it either. So there you are.
Anna,
I have another question. This one's a little bit more logistical. So I run the Wealthy House's social media account, and so many of these articles present an interesting visual aid to the different elements of Miss Welty's life. So I'm wondering, like, what type of permission process did you undergo, or was there any that you were had to go through to compile all these things, and if like somebody wanted to use the images or use these articles, what would that look like for them? If it is that permission process similar, or are these just freely available for use?
Feel like it's a kind of complex. We talked a lot about copyright in the beginning of this project because I was concerned about
Yeah.
using these images. But I think what we both settled on is fair use and using. We're not just sharing these as they are. We're transforming the use of how they're considered from something like newspapers.com. each article is cited on the website and gives credit to where it came from. I think there are a small enough amount of users so far that we haven't had any problems. But that's a good question.
Yeah,
I think, yeah, go ahead, Michael.
Oh, no. I didn't mean to cut you off. I think certainly, as Melissa is saying, something that we need to continue looking into, but transformative use is one of the criteria for fair use of material. And what this website is doing that the source database would not do is to put the individual article into an array that is specific to Eudora Welty and establishing links and relationships among articles that could not be achieved really on any one of the databases that we are drawing from. And so I think that there's a very strong case to be made here, but one to continue exploring for sure.
But to clarify, I do not need to be downloading these images and posting them to our social media. Heard.
Yeah. Let's follow up about that under separate cover.
Other questions? I don't see. Oh, yeah, Michael.
I was just going to say, I was talking with Melissa a few weeks ago about the scholar William Wordsworth, Mark Reed, who spent just about every day of his 30-year career as a scholar trying to track all the known information about every day of William Wordsworth's life. And so he published these great chronologies of Wordsworth that like go day by day from, 1770 to 1850. And you can learn, what piece of information attests to Wordsworth's existence on any given day during his lifetime. And I think that, this kind of site, that could permit down the line something like that. I mean, what was Welty's public life day by day in the news, or decade by decade in the news? And so, being able to study that and to draw conclusions. I mean, what Mark Reed did was an immense labor, but it makes so many interesting articles about Wordsworth possible because he has compiled that data to begin with, if that makes sense. And so I think there are lots of different ways to use this site and future directions for it, but just wanted to put that kind of idea out there. I see, Joellen, you have your hand raised.
Yeah,
No.
I was just going to, oh, okay.
Yeah, go.
I was just going to note that I was part of an NEH seminar with Walt Litz at Princeton, who's a modernist mostly,
Yep.
and he was using some other chronological timelines day by day. I don't remember specific writers, but some modernists were among them. If anyone has a yen for that kind of thing, seeing how some of them correlate with Welty's timeline might be interesting.
Yeah.
But her period.
I'm also wondering, what about why the date 1920? Was that the first article you could find?
That's the first article I could find. Yeah, I haven't found anything earlier than that. And just I think we have a pretty good collection from 1920 to 1940 in terms of everything I have access to being up and images. And then right now I'm almost through 1940, so we'll have a really good set from 40 to 50. And we just kind of keep filling in holes as I move along.
Do you know when the Jackson Daily News will be totally available via newspapers.com? Because I think that's a gap. That, sometimes the Daily News had articles that the Clarion Ledger didn't run.
Okay.
And we have historically Black-owned newspaper publications in Jackson as well that are not currently archived at that level. But it would be really interesting to see, Welty's appearance in any of those papers as well.
Good idea.
Have you checked the databases for historical Black newspapers?
I have not personally done that. I have looked into this in the past because I've been curious about, for example, Powerhouse, and also I've gone looking for Welty when Welty read Powerhouse at Millsaps in 1963 for our Southern Literary Festival, it was the first integrated event at Millsaps, public event at Millsaps. There had been some classes that had been kind of privately integrated under the table, but Welty's reading was the first time the college committed to a public event like that in 1963. It was kind of interesting. And so I went looking for any reporting that might have covered that, and I could not find it. Doesn't mean it's there. I think probably there are microfilm. There's some stuff available on microfilm at the archives, and I just need to create time to go down and look at that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so much depends on what has been digitized and where it is available.
And Melissa, you referred to a process that probably most people know about, but some may not. OCR, optical character recognition, and so it's software that goes into a PDF or an image and pulls out the text and recognizes and captures the text and makes it essentially usable as though you had a text document. So it creates, in effect, a text document out of a PDF that you can search by word, for example. And so that software has been around for a long time. It's getting better and better and better. But when a PDF has not been OCR'd, it's really difficult to figure out where Welty might appear, in that text, if at all. So that's, Melissa, you were referring to that. I just wanted to say a little bit more about that process. So it's not only that we get these materials scanned, but having them OCR'd, and then some level of indexing. I mean, even you saw Melissa there's a subject page on the website, and one of the things that I think is often hidden behind a lot of scholarly projects is the scholarly work of creating these subject designations. It's metadata, so data about data that helps you when you're searching for something online, pull up one article and not another article. And so when Melissa is going into our spreadsheet, and there's a huge, 3,500 row spreadsheet that is the website is built out of. And when Melissa goes into that spreadsheet, and she identifies a subject for a given article, that is what makes it possible to locate. And so there's some judgment in there, a judgment call about how to develop a subject identification based on what you've read about an article. And so I'll just note that if you go onto our site and you spend any time with the articles and you think there are subject headings that we should add to a given article, that is a way that you can be involved in creating scholarly assistance for this website to help other readers. So I want to second Melissa's call for collaborators. We'd love to participate, with anybody who would like to get involved. And if you have ideas for another digital project that the Welty Lab might be able to help you with, please do get in touch with me too, because I'd love to talk with you about that.
Joellen, did you have another question? I'm seeing you there.
Oh.
No.
I'm here, but
Okay.
actually I was wondering, I was going to make a point about historical Black newspapers. In local history work, we discovered that a lot of smaller Black history papers, like one in Grand Rapids, relied heavily on sort of sentinel node newspapers. And if they can be discovered, it might be most likely to find certain mentions of Welty and Black histories or stories that include Black characters. But anyway, that's just there's a kind of array from that might be used in searching those periodicals.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Hello?
Susan has a question. Susan Shans.
Oh, go, Susan.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm sorry. This is Charlotte, and
Charlotte.
I can't find how to put the hand up.
I can't either. I agree. Go ahead, Charlotte.
My question has to do with Eudora's photography. I've always been a happy Eudora reader, but I didn't really discover her photography until that her first publication of her first photography came out. And I'm a photography buff, and I really love her photography, and I would like to look into that aspect of her career more. So can you all give me any sources or ways to continue to do that?
Well, one way to answer that question, Charlotte, is just to note Liz Kambanga in the chat mention that we do have lots of newspaper clippings at the MDAH, and the MDAH Digital Archive, which Liz helps to develop and maintain, has some photographs, lots of photographs on it, in fact. So I would recommend that you start by going to the Eudora Welty Digital Archives. And Liz, you may want to chime in. There are some wonderful collections of Welty's photographs, and I know our scholar colleagues on the call will have recommendations about books to read as well. But I just wanted to begin by pointing to the Welty Digital Archives, which is a great place to go and look.
I'm
Liz,
also-
will
I
you
just
drop the link
linked it in the
chat?
chat,
Okay.
the digital archives where you can go and look at the photographs that Welty took. These are ones that were published as well as others, and we are currently working on digitizing the rest of her photographs. But in the meantime, until that's done, we have the digital archives. That would be a great source.
Well, in addition to being able to see the at the archives, the digital photos, I mean, that would just be a blast. What about sources for any written history articles specifically about her photographs, even in relation to the other famous photographers starting in the 20s? Does that ring a bell at all?
We have a couple of folks on the call who've written books about Welty and photography. I mean, it may be good to defer to them to answer.
So you might check the names Harriet Pollock and Pearl McCaney for two.
Okay.
And if you're interested in those books, Charlotte, you're more than welcome to check them out here from our Ed library.
Oh, good.
You're here as a volunteer. We are running short on time, so I do want to get to Susan Shan.
I'm sorry, I just had one other thing. You know, Robbie Luckett at the Margaret Walker Alexander, he's had graduate students doing that for 20 years. They've got every diary, every letter. And so I just thought about it. We do not have a lot of digitalized stuff from the Black sources in Mississippi as much as we should have, but they have a lot. And think about the times when you would see Margaret Walker Alexander and Eudora when Hillary Clinton came, or when they talked at some meeting. I think that's another source of digitalized history documents that might have Eudora in there that we might not have thought of.
And one other thing about photographs, I think your newspaper search for 1936, for instance, and 37, when Eudora had shows in New York City, might turn up some articles about those early photography shows. Tom, did you have something you wanted to add?
No.
All right, Anna, I'll turn it back to you.
All righty. Well, we are at the end of our session here. And so I want to thank Michael and Melissa and Rose for sharing about their project. I think it was wonderful. So if everybody could give them a thanks for visiting with us today and sharing all the hard work that they've done on this project. And
I want to second that because I am so admire the work that all three of you have done, and I'm so grateful for it. So thank you.
Yes, thank you both. Thank you all three so much. And as promised, before we get out of here today, I do want to make the announcement about what our next book club pick will be. So we toyed around last series during Meanwhile There Are Letters with what Ross McDonald book we should choose, and we just couldn't. So we decided to pick both The Underground Man and Sleeping Beauty. That series will begin the second Monday in June. So that is June 8th, I believe. That is correct. And we will start June 8th and then finish the last Monday of June. So it's going to be a quick series getting through both books, 2 weeks on the first book, 2 weeks on the second book. A summer of murder mysteries that we just can't put down. So I'm hoping that you guys will be able to join us for that. I will send out the detailed reading schedule whenever this week's newsletter and recording goes to your inbox. So keep an eye out for that, and we hope to see you again in June. Thank you all so much for joining us.
I hope we can keep up with your speed of reading. Yep, because once you're in those books, you're going to read quickly.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.